The wrong planet for a first teeth courtroom was round, glowing, and smelled slightly of mint and melted plastic. A human stood inside a glass cage. His hands were tied, his eyes wide. His name was Rick Carter, space cargo pilot, coffee addict, and currently very confused. Across from him stood a tall alien woman with purple skin, 4 arms, and a glare that could melt steel. Her name was Zaraneth, and she was not happy. She pointed one shiny claw at Rick and shouted. He pulled out. "That's illegal on Zarnaxis." Gasps filled the alien courtroom. The crowd of creatures, some with feathers, others with tentacles, began whispering. A 6-eyed judge slammed a glowing gavel and said in a deep voice, "Silence. Human, you are charged with betrayal of sacred union. How do you plead?" Rick blinked. "What? I didn't even know I was in a union." The judge leaned forward. "Let the memory record show what happened." And just like that, the lights dimmed, and the courtroom filled with swirling images. A hologram played in the air, showing the events from 3 days ago. Rick's ship, the Rusty Tomato, had crash-landed on planet Zarnaxis 9. His autopilot had gone bananas near a cosmic storm, and he ended up on this glowing purple planet full of friendly, but very touchy, aliens. They welcomed him with open arms, gave him food that made his tongue buzz and drinks that made his hair stand up. And then he met Zaraneth. She was beautiful in a tall, alien, slightly terrifying way. She invited him to her sky palace and offered him something she called a ritual of hospitality. Rick thought it was just dinner and maybe some weird alien dance. Instead, he was led into a room filled with glowing orbs, soft music, and a floating bed made of energy. A robotic voice said, "Please complete the bonding ceremony by placing your hand on the crystal." Rick did it, because honestly, he was tired, hungry, and didn't want to be rude. Zara smiled and placed her hand on the crystal too. And then it happened. The crystal glowed. Alarms went off. Confetti fell from the ceiling. Fireworks exploded. "Congratulations," the room shouted. "You are now life-bound." Rick panicked. "What? Life-bound? I thought this was a foot massage or something." He pulled his hand off the crystal and backed away. "Sorry, this is all moving a little fast for me." Zara's smile vanished. "You pulled out during the sacred bonding?" "I didn't know it was sacred. I thought we were just," Rick gulped, "hanging out." That was the moment it all went wrong. Back in the courtroom, the hologram faded. Zara looked heartbroken and furious. "He dishonored my clan. He dishonored my soul. And worst of all," she looked at Rick with eyes full of betrayal, "he left before dessert." The judge shook his head. "Human Rick Carter, you have broken the ancient law of Zarnaxis. Pulling out of a life bond is a class of betrayal." Rick raised his tied hands. "Okay. First of all, Earth has a very different idea of dating. Second, you can't just trick someone into space marriage and expect them to smile about it." "Silence," the judge bellowed. "You will now be sent to the chamber of reflection until punishment is decided." 2 guards with jelly-like skin approached him. One had handcuffs that looked alive. They latched onto Rick with a wet slap. They dragged him out of the courtroom. Rick looked around at the watching aliens and muttered, "This is the worst first date I've ever had." Inside the chamber of reflection, Rick sat on a cushion that kept changing colors. He stared at the glowing walls, trying to figure out what just happened. "All I wanted was to deliver cargo, eat a sandwich, and maybe nap." The door opened. A small alien with 3 eyes and a tiny voice stepped in. "Psst, human, you don't know me, but I'm here to help you escape." Rick stood up fast. "Escape? Yes, please. But," the alien said, "you must act fast. They are sending you to the trials of compatibility tomorrow." "That sounds bad." "It is. Last guy never came back. Just left a shoe and a love poem." Rick swallowed hard. "I need to get off this planet." And just like that, the great escape plan began. Escape isn't an option. Escape began with a slipper, a sneeze, and a stolen teleport key. Rick Carter was on the run. The glowing cuffs were still on his wrists, now short-circuited thanks to a lucky elbow jab into an alien power socket. The jelly-like guard had screamed, "My sensors," before collapsing into a puddle of sadness. Now, Rick was sprinting through the winding tunnels beneath the Zarnax's High Court. His guide, a tiny alien named Nerp, who looked like a walking vegetable with legs, floated beside him, panicking. Every 5 seconds, go left. Know your other left. That's a maintenance closet. That's oh great. Now we smell like plumbing fluid. Rick burst out of the tunnel and into a place he never expected to find in a galactic legal district. A giant alien street bazaar, buzzing with life. There were creatures selling moon bread. A 6-armed band playing music that sounded like two cats arguing. One stall offered love potions and glowing test tubes. Another advertised human snacks, now 20% less screaming. Rick ducked into a stall selling robes. He snatched a long purple cloak and a hat shaped like a starfish. He looked ridiculous, but at least not human ridiculous. Nerp zipped beside him. This is not going to work. They'll track you. How? I smell like moldy soup now. They implanted you with a scent beacon. It's broadcasting your fear and confusion at a frequency only Zarnaxian hunters can smell. Rick froze. I knew that welcome massage was too oily. Suddenly, the music in the bazaar stopped. Everyone turned their heads upward. Overhead, a giant hologram of Zaraneth flickered to life. She looked calm, too calm. To the citizens of Zarnaxis, a dangerous criminal is among you. His crime? Breaking a sacred bond, dishonoring tradition, and worst of all, ghosting me after cuddles. Rick shouted to no one. We didn't even cuddle. But the crowd wasn't listening. They hissed, pointed. One licked his arm. Nerp grabbed his sleeve. We've got to run. They ducked into an alley lit by glowing vines. Rick panted, leaning against the wall. There has to be a way off this planet. A ship? A spaceport? Anything. Nerp hesitated. There is one place, but it's not safe. I just faked a jellyfish handcuff death and ran through a soup bazaar defined not safe. There's a black market launchpad beneath the old Moon Temple ruins, Nerp whispered. But it's run by a criminal named Skelgren the Moist. Rick blinked. Please tell me that's a nickname and not a condition. He eats people who ask too many questions. Great. They reached the ruins just before nightfall. Zarnaxis didn't have a normal night. The sky turned deep blue and stars danced like fireflies. It would have been beautiful if Rick wasn't stepping over skulls, hiding behind statues, and dodging alien bounty drones shaped like angry bathtubs. Inside the ruins, they crept through an underground hallway where everything smelled like wet socks and cinnamon. A voice echoed from the shadows. You brought me a human, Nerp. From the darkness, a creature crawled out. It was 10 feet tall, all slime and teeth, wearing a business suit 2 sizes too small. Skelgren the Moist. Rick raised a hand. Hi, not here to be eaten. Just trying to leave this romantic nightmare planet. Skelgren sniffed him. You reek of betrayal. I like that. He flicked a switch. A wall opened, revealing a dusty old Earth shuttle, a Class C freighter. She's old, leaky, and cursed by 3 worm gods. But she FLIs. Rick almost cried. Yes, please. I'll take it. Skelgren held up a slimy finger. In exchange, I need a favor. Rick sighed. Of course. You must deliver this package to Sector 19X without opening it. Ever. The package was pulsating and humming a lullaby. Rick didn't like that. Sure. Yeah. Totally not ominous. But as Rick took the package and stepped toward the shuttle, a loud blast echoed. Boom. The wall exploded. Standing in the smoke with armor, hover boots, and glowing eyes was Zaraneth. Rick, she said calmly. You didn't really think I'd let you leave without finishing what you started. Behind her, drones, hunters, a floating marriage registrar. Rick backed up slowly toward the ship. Okay, so this is what a toxic X looks like in space. Zara raised her arm. Come back now, and we'll reduce your sentence to only 5 cycles of bonding therapy. Rick bolted toward the ship. Laser beams shot past him. Skelgren laughed and disappeared into the floor like slime. Nerp screamed and jumped into Rick's backpack. Rick slammed the door shut, hit every button that looked like go fast, and the ship rumbled to life. Zara screamed, "You can't run from destiny, Rick Carter." But the ship blasted off into the sky, leaving behind fire, smoke, and an angry alien woman vowing revenge. Inside the ship, Rick breathed hard, the stars now ahead of him. Nerp poked his head out. "We're not safe yet. She will chase you across galaxies." Rick leaned back in the pilot seat, exhausted. "Remind me never to date again." Nerp pointed to the mysterious package. "It's humming louder now." Rick looked down at it. It had started glowing and whispering. The marriage tribunal ship was quiet. Too quiet. Rick Carter, interstellar fugitive, and accidental fianc, stared at the mysterious glowing package sitting on the console of the crusty old freighter. It hadn't stopped humming since takeoff. Worse, it had started whispering. Rick, do you like surprises?" Rick stood up so fast he hit his head on a pipe. "I swear, if this thing starts singing happy birthday, I'm ejecting it into a sun." From the corner, Nerp peeked out of a food cabinet where he had been hiding with a jar of pickled slugs. "Don't open it. Don't even look at it too long. Last time someone opened a package from Skelgrin, Black Hole tried to sell them insurance." Rick sighed. "Why can't anything be normal in space? Where's the simple stuff? Aliens saying hi, offering snacks, not marriage lawsuits and haunted boxes." As Rick ranted, the ship jolted violently. Alarms screamed, red lights, loud buzzing. Nerp screamed, "Oh no, oh no, no, no." Rick grabbed the controls. What now?" "She found us. Outside." Space bent like paper. A golden wormhole opened in front of the ship, and out came a massive cruiser shaped like a heart pierced with a laser arrow. On the side, in big glowing letters, Zarnaxis Matrimony Enforcement Division. "Oh, come on," Rick shouted. Before he could steer away, the cruiser fired a beam. Not a weapon, a tractor cuddle ray, and suddenly Rick's ship was being pulled in like a love-struck puppy. "Brace for forced romance," Nerp yelled. A few hours later, Rick woke up on a floating bed made of pink mist. His wrists were tied again, but this time with silky red vines that smelled like strawberries and mild regret. He was in a chamber filled with floating candles and soft romantic music, but also unsettling laser turrets in every corner. Varaneth stood beside him in ceremonial robes that sparkled every time she blinked. "Welcome," she said softly, "to the Tribunal of Bonds." "Zara," Rick said, squinting. "You abducted me again. I hope you know this is not helping your case." She smiled. Rick, this isn't about me. This is about justice." The walls opened. A courtroom unfolded from the sides. Like a blooming space flower, rows of alien officials appeared. Some had 3 heads. One was entirely made of fog. The center, the same 6-eyed judge from before, floated down on a hover chair. "We are gathered once again to determine the fate of the human known as Rick Carter, breaker of bonds, puller out, and serial ghoster." Rick groaned. "Oh, come on. I only ghosted one girl in college. Once." Zara leaned forward, eyes glowing. "Your history of romantic evasion is disturbing." The judge slammed his gavel. "Begin the evidence presentation." Exhibit A, Zara's memory crystal. It showed a replay of Rick pulling his hand away from the bonding crystal. But now, it was zoomed in slow motion, with dramatic violin music. Rick shouted from his vine cuffs, "You edited that footage. You put filters on it." Zara smirked. "Only a little. You look very untrustworthy in sepia." Exhibit B, testimonies from other species. An alien llama testified. "He once waved at me and never called back." A space octopus cried. "He matched with my sister on the dating app, then unmatched when he saw her beak." Rick yelled, "I'm just bad at committing, okay?" The courtroom murmured with judgmental hisses. The judge looked at Rick. "You have one final chance. A trial of emotional compatibility." A large pod lowered from the ceiling blinked. "That looks like a therapy egg." "It is a therapy egg," said Zara. "We go in. We connect minds. If we're truly compatible, the egg will turn gold. If not, it explodes." Rick stared. "Explodes? Only mildly. Nothing fatal. Usually." Inside the egg, the walls were soft and glowing. Rick and Zara sat facing each other. Okay, Rick said nervously. What happens now? We talk. We open our souls. Rick nodded. Fine, I'll start. He took a deep breath. When I was 8, I cried because I thought Pluto was lonely. I once kept a rock as a pet. And I've never had a real girlfriend because space is hard and I'm scared I'll screw it up. Zara blinked. That's the most honest thing I've ever heard you say, Rick continued. I panic when things get serious. That's why I left the ritual. It wasn't about you. It was about me not knowing how to handle someone actually caring. Silence. Then the egg started to glow, flickering, changing color. And finally, it turned gold. Suddenly alarms went off. The egg opened. Emotional compatibility achieved. The voice boomed. Commence full union in 3, 2. Rick yelled. Wait. WHAT. I never agreed to. Zara looked shocked too. That shouldn't happen. I didn't feel anything. The judge floated in. It appears your bond is real, against all odds. Then he leaned closer to Rick and whispered. But just in case, if you try to run again, the next egg explodes on purpose. Back in the holding cell, Rick sat in silence. Nerp climbed through the vent. You're still alive. And, glowing, Rick looked down. A small tattoo had appeared on his arm. A mark of union. Nerp poked it. That's permanent. You're now half legally married in 4 galaxies. Rick stared blankly at the wall. This is worse than space jail. Then the package, the one from Skelgren, began to levitate. It cracked open. Inside was a baby creature, small, glowing, looking straight at Rick. It cooed. Hello, Daddy. Trial by fire. And tentacless the baby glowed. It hovered gently out of the cracked package and floated toward Rick, who was now officially overwhelmed, half married, sleep deprived, and seconds away from an emotional breakdown. The glowing child, small, round, with big luminous eyes and 2 mini antennae, blinked at him sweetly and said, in perfect English, Hello, Daddy. Rick screamed. Nerp screamed louder. Even the baby let out a little peep, which caused all of the lights in the ship to flicker like a horror movie. Rick backed into a corner of the room. Nope. No. It didn't order any galactic kids. You saw me, Nerp. I pulled out of the ritual. Literally. Nerp hovered closer to the floating baby. It's not biologically yours. I think it's a soul splice offspring. Rick blinked. I don't know what that means, but I hate it already. Nerp explained quickly. Zarnaxis. When 2 people create an emotionally compatible bond, the universe sometimes generates a child made of both souls. Rick dropped to the floor. This place, this whole planet, this culture, it's insane. You cry one tear, and suddenly, the universe hands you a toddler. The baby floated gently into Rick's lap and curled into a glowing ball. It purred. Rick stared at it, horrified, and kind of touched. It's actually kind of cute, in a radioactive jelly bean way. Meanwhile, back in the High Council Tower, Zaraneth was pacing. Her generals stood at attention. Her claws clicked against the floor. She had seen the baby too. That's impossible, she muttered. The egg must have malfunctioned. There's no way he and I are compatible. He doesn't even like tentacle soup. Her advisor, floating orb named Vrox, pulsed nervously. And yet, the soul splice has occurred. The child exists. Which means, the prophecy may be true. Zara froze. You don't mean? Yes, Vrox whispered. The chosen unbinder, the one who will break our ancient traditions, and free the galaxy from compulsory bonding laws. Zara whispered to herself, Rick Carter, you absolute disaster of a man. You might actually matter. Back on the ship. Suddenly, boom, the ship lurched. Alarms blared. Something had attached itself to the outer hull. Rick jumped up. No more surprises. I'm still processing the baby. Nerp checked the scanners. We're being boarded by Zarnaxian elite hunters, the ones trained in the ancient ways. Rick's eyes narrowed. What ancient ways? A loud voice echoed through the ship's intercom. Prepare for the trial of compatibility dances. Rick blinked. Excuse me, what? Nerp sighed. They're going to make you dance for your life. 5 minutes later, Rick stood in a wide circular room with a glowing dance floor. around him, armored Zarnaxian warriors, cheering, chanting, and holding up signs that said Team Zara and make him twirl. Zara arrived, dressed in full ceremonial armor, but with sparkly elbow pads. The judge's voice boomed across the arena, "Begin the dance of destiny." Rick whispered to Nerp, who was now DJing from a floating booth, "Play literally anything. Without lasers." Nerp shrugged and hit a button. Suddenly, upbeat space jazz with heavy bass filled the chamber. Rick looked at Zara. She was already mid-spin, flipping through the air like a warrior ballerina. Rick shuffled awkwardly, did a half-split, pulled a muscle, and then moonwalked into a wall. The crowd gasped, but then, the Soul Splice baby floated in and started dancing. It wiggled in midair, spun, did a perfect figure eight. The crowd lost it. They chanted, "The baby wins. The baby wins." Rick collapsed, panting. "This is the worst fever dream ever had." Zara watched the child, a strange mix of her alien elegance and Rick's chaotic energy, and something changed in her face. Not anger, not disappointment. Fear. She turned to the judge. "End the dance. Take them back to the high chamber." The judge frowned. But the nighter. In the chamber of bonding truths, Rick sat at a table across from Zara. Between them, the baby, snoring softly in a bubble crib. Zara spoke first. "The child is a threat, not because of you, but because of what it represents." Rick nodded slowly. "Yeah, it represents that I can't go 5 minutes in space without a new life crisis." Zara leaned in. "Rick, that child, your soul splice, may be the end of the Zarnaxian bonding laws. If the council sees that a human and Zarnaxian created it outside official ceremony, they'll panic. You'll be executed. I'll be exiled." Rick blinked. "And the baby?" Zara was silent. "Then, they'll send it to Sector 0, the place where failed fusions go. It won't survive." Rick stood. "Nope, not happening. I'm not letting that happen to this glowing raisin," she sighed. "Then you need to run. Again. This time for real. And I have to help you." Rick stared. "Wait, you're actually helping me now?" Zara gave him a tired smile. "You are incredibly annoying, but somehow, you changed everything, including me." Final scene. The escape begins under cover of night. Zara leads Rick, Nerp, and the space baby through the underground launch tunnels. They reach a stolen cruiser. It's shaped like a croissant, but it FLIs. Zara hands Rick a glowing chip. "This ship is untraceable. Head for Sector 19X. There's someone there who can help you hide." Rick looks at her. "You're not coming?" Zara shakes her head. "They'll come for me first. That'll give you time." He hesitates, then, awkwardly, hugs her. She stiffens, then slowly hugs back. "You still owe me dessert," she mutters. Rick smirks. "Add it to the list." The ship blasts off into the stars. Zara watches it disappear, her expression unreadable. Behind her, the shadows shift. A voice speaks. "You helped the Unbinder escape." Zara turns slowly. A figure steps out tall, wearing a mask made of stardust. "Now," the figure says, "the real trials begin. Human heart, alien drama location. Sector 19X Forbidden Zone." Reach stars looked. "Wrong here. Too close. Too quiet." Space wasn't supposed to breathe, was it? Rick Carter's new stolen croissant-shaped cruiser, freshly renamed. The emotional support ship floated silently toward a dark, icy moonlit only by a flickering red sun. In the co-pilot seat, Nerp nervously adjusted his seatbelt made of spaghetti noodles. "Rick, are you sure this is the place Zara told you about? I'm getting very strong 'you're going to die here' vibes." Rick stared ahead, one eye twitching. "She said someone here could help us. Besides, where else are we gonna go? The baby's glowing brighter every day." He hummed the Jaws theme in his sleep last night. Nerp whispered, "I don't like how he stares at me while silently levitating my socks." Rick glanced at the back seat. The baby, now the size of a small watermelon, sat calmly in a floating bassinet, playing with a piece of string that never touched his hands. His eyes were too big, his smile too knowing. Suddenly he cooed. "There, Coming? Rick choked on his protein bar. What do you mean, they're coming? Who's coming? But the baby just giggled, farted a tiny sparkle, and went back to chewing the string. As the ship landed, the planet beneath was cold, metallic, and shaped like a broken mirror. Rusted towers pierced the clouds like ancient bones. Rick stepped out, Nerp floating nervously behind him, and cradled the space baby in a bubble-wrap sling. They approached a crumbling structure that looked like a cross between a temple and a crashed vending machine. Inside waited a shadowy figure wrapped in ragged robes. She turned slowly, sharp features, deep green eyes. Human? A human? Rick blinked. Finally, someone who might actually get my references. She didn't smile. I'm Dr. Ilara Min, she said coldly. Exiled biogeneticist. And if Zara sent you here, that means you're either the chosen idiot or the most dangerous man in the galaxy. Rick raised a hand. Technically, I'm both. The secret unfolds inside Ilara's lab, a twisted mess of cables, living tissue, and what might have been a toaster with feelings. Rick learned the truth. The soul splice child, Ilara said, examining the baby, not just a bond baby. He's something older, something awakened. Rick blinked. Awakened? Like a really creepy morning person? Ilara sighed. No, he's a conduit, a vessel, the first spark of an ancient power long buried by the Zarnaxian Council. He's proof that emotional compatibility doesn't need their rituals, their crystals, their laws. Nerp whispered. You mean love can just happen? Ilara nodded. Yes, which is why they'll do anything to erase him. Rick looked down at the baby now glowing with the halo of starlight. But why me? He asked. I'm just some Earth guy who delivers cargo and occasionally panics during eye contact. Ilara pulled out an old holoscript, dusty, cracked. The prophecy spoke of a human, not a warrior, not a king, but a chaotic soul, one with no home, no rules, no TIs, who would shatter the galaxy's oldest prison. The marriage code. Rick stared at her. That is the most flattering thing anyone's ever said to me. Suddenly, the power flickered. Sirens howled. Ilara's eyes widened. No, not now. Not this soon. Outside, the skies tore open. A dozen Zarnaxian battle ships decloaked above them. Zara's face appeared on the screen. She looked torn, eyes sad, voice steady. Rick, please, surrender, before it's too late. Rick stepped forward. Zara, you sent me here. Why are you doing this? She looked away. I didn't. No, the council tracked me. They followed your bond trace. They know everything now. And they're scared. Behind her, another voice, deeper, older, spoke. Bring the unbinder to us, or we bring Sector 19X to the ground. Ilara screamed. We have to move. The base shook. Nerp grabbed the baby. He's levitating again. I think he's powering up. The baby awakens. Lights exploded. The soul splice child began to glow so brightly, Rick had to shield his eyes. The baby's voice echoed across the room, layered, older, not his own. You bound love with chains. You will now face the fire of feeling. A wave of psychic energy blasted outward, disabling the ships in orbit temporarily. Rick stared. Okay, that was either awesome or the beginning of a galactic disaster. Ilara, pale, whispered. He's activating the heart core, the ancient emotional engine of the galaxy. If he reaches full potential, he'll rewrite the laws of emotional bonding for every species in existence. Rick nodded slowly. Wow, that's heavy. Also, cool, Nerp whispered. Also very likely to get us all vaporized. The final decision, with the base collapsing, the child glowing, and enemy ships rebooting above, Rick faced his choice. Run and hide again? Or take the fight to the heart of Zarnaxis and end this madness once and for all? He looked at Ilara. Is there a way to amplify the baby's signal? Make it reach the whole galaxy? She nodded. Yes, but we'll need to get to the Tower of Unity, the old central core on Zarnaxis, buried deep beneath the capital. Rick looked at the babe. Okay, kiddo, time to prove that love, real, messy, human love, is more powerful than ancient alien bureaucracy. The baby farted again, this time with a rain or fugitives. location, en route to Zarnaxis Prime, the capital planet. The ship roared through space like an angry toaster with unresolved trauma. Inside the cockpit, Rick Carter gripped the controls like a man flying toward either glorious destiny or instant incineration. Honestly, he wasn't sure which was more likely. Beside him, Nerp wore 3 seatbelts and was reading from a manual titled, How to Fly Through a Government-Blocked Atmosphere Without Exploding, Beginner Edition. And in the back, the glowing soul splice child hovered in a bubble, whispering strange phrases in multiple ancient languages. At once, all hearts must break before they open. Cuddle resistance is futile. Cookies are the key, Rick muttered. This kid is either a space messiah or a Pinterest quote machine on cosmic steroids. Flashback 3 days earlier before they'd left Sector 19X, Elara had pulled Rick aside. This child has already begun to influence the psychic grid of over 72 systems. Once he reaches Zarnaxis Prime, he'll have access to the Tower of Unity, the central core of emotional law for half the galaxy. Rick squinted. Wait, there's an actual tower that controls everyone's feelings? Elara nodded. It was built eons ago to stabilize intergalactic bonding, but it's been corrupted, twisted into control. The Council uses it to enforce their version of love, their version of obedience. Rick rubbed his face. And you're saying this baby can override that? With your help, yes, Elara said, but the closer he gets, the more unstable he'll become. Emotionally, energetically. Rick frowned. You mean like cosmic puberty? Worse, Elara whispered. Emotional singularity. If he overloads, the galaxy could collapse into one massive therapy session. Now, orbital Zarnaxis. The ship reached orbit. Zarnaxis Prime shimmered below all golden towers, floating gardens, and terrifying levels of bureaucracy, and surrounding it a fleet of Zarnaxian warships. Thousands, armed and very unromantic. A cum line opened. The Council's voice echoed across the ship. Rick Carter, by order of Galactic Marriage Code 87B, you are to surrender yourself and the unregulated offspring. Immediately, Rick pressed the button. Yeah, hi. Quick question, does that code come with a dental plan, or just eternal space prison? Click. Nerp panicked. Rick, they're locking on. Suddenly, boom. The ship rocked, systems failing, shields gone. They were spiraling toward the surface. Rick grabbed the child, tucked him into his jacket like a glowing emotional football, and yelled, Crash landing. It is. Crash site, the wedding district. Zarnaxis Prometheus ship smashed through a floral parade float, skidded through a tuxedo outlet, and finally stopped in a lake shaped like a heart. Rick crawled out, soaked and coughing flower petals. Nerp stumbled after him, blinking. We crashed into the district of eternal commitment. This is sacred territory. Rick spat out a confetti dove. They should pave it. No wonder the planet's insane. But before they could catch their breath, a familiar figure dropped from above, armor glinting, spear raised. Zaraneth. She looked different, not angry, not proud, sad. Rick, she said quietly, why did you come back? He held the baby close. Because this child deserves better than a galaxy of rules and forced love. And because, he hesitated, then looked her in the eyes, because, part of me wants to believe there's still something real between us, beyond the rituals, beyond the chaos. Zara looked away. You still don't understand what this means. Rick took a shaky breath. Then show me. The Tower of Unity escorted by Zara, now acting as protector instead of pursuer. Rick, Nerp, and the baby made their way into the ancient tower. The interior pulsed with raw energy, light, sound, memories all swirling around them like emotional Wi-Fi. At the center, a glowing crystal chamber with the throne of bonds, the core seat. Zara explained, whoever places the child in the core seat rewrites the rules, ends the old ways, or strengthens them forever. The baby hovered closer. His eyes lit up like twin galaxies. I am ready. But before Rick could move, boom, the council arrived. Dozens of robed figures, led by Archbinder Kelthan, a 1,000-year-old being made of psychic contracts and smugness. Kelthon pointed at Rick. The human has corrupted the splice. Step away and surrender the child. Rick stepped forward instead. No, this kid isn't corrupted. He's free, which scares the hell out of you. Kelthon raised his hand. Zara stepped between them. If you want to stop him, you'll have to go through me. The final stanchets exploded. Zarnaxian guards attacked. Zara fought with spinning plasma spears, dancing between blades and binding ribbons. Rick protected the baby, using every bad kung fu move he ever saw in old Earth movies. Nerp bit someone, and then Rick reached the core seat. He gently placed the baby on it. The tower pulsed. Light swallowed the room. Every bonding record in the galaxy lit up like fireflies. A voice boomed from the child, older than stars. Let love be free. Let choice be sacred. Let no law dictate the heart. The crystal cracked. The council screamed. The marriage code shattered. Aftermath. The baby slowly floated down into Rick's arms, now calm. Smaller, normal. Rick collapsed, laughing and crying. Please, tell me this means I don't owe alimony to 5 planets. Zara sat beside him, breathing hard. You changed everything, she whispered. Rick smiled. Hey, that's what humans do best. We mess things up, and sometimes we fix them. Zara leaned closer. So, what happens now? He looked at her. The baby. The broken laws around them. We start over. No rituals. No crystals. Just us. If that's what you want. She took his hand. I do. Nerp cheered from a pile of unconscious guards. That counts as a proposal in 12 systems. Rick shouted. Don't ruin this. You pulled out. The truth. Location. Zarnaxis Prime. 3 days after the fall of the marriage, Kadeth Tower of Unity stood silent, cracked, glowing faintly like the dying embers of a once unchallenged system. News had spread like wildfire across the stars. The human broke the bond. The code is dead. Free love has returned, and it's confused. On 25 planets, arranged marriages collapsed overnight. Ritual bondings were canceled. Several intergalactic dating apps crashed due to traffic. Rick Carter, now labeled across systems as the Unbinder, was hiding behind a giant decorative space bush in Zaraneth's private garden. Are they still out there? He whispered. Nerp, sitting beside him, peeked through the leaves. Yup, whole crowd of aliens. Some have protest signs. One says, make emotional dependence optional. Another just says, marry me, Rick. Rick groaned. I'm not even legally single yet in half the galaxy. I broke a cosmic law. Not open to speed dating event. The baby floating in his little hover crib, now less glowy, but 40% more wise looking, let out a soft, monk-like sigh. Your freedom has consequences, father. Rick looked at him. You're a week old and already judging me. Zara's return. Zaraneth approached, dressed in non-battle clothes for the first time, a soft silver robe, no weapons in sight, just a calm presence that felt oddly peaceful. The council has officially disbanded, she said. Most have gone into hiding. Kelthon vanished. Rumors say he's trying to form a rebound union. Rick squinted. Like a cult for bitter exes? Zara smiled. Basically, but then she frowned. There's something else. She pulled out an ancient scroll. The prophecy you fulfilled, it doesn't end with the fall of the marriage code. It warns of a backlash, a darkness that once fed on forced connection. Now wake. Rick blinked. So you're saying the old system didn't just enforce emotion, it powered something worse? Zara nodded. Nerp fainted into a bush. The awakened one later that night, while Rick tried to meditate, read, stress, eat space snacks. The skies over Zarnaxis cracked open again, only this time, it wasn't ships. It was him. A being of shadows, floating in the clouds above the ruins of the tower. No face, no body, just intention. You broke the code. You weakened the seal. Now I return. Elara's voice crackled over the combs. That's Nullivar, the ancient parasitic consciousness born from generations of artificial bonding. He fed off suppressed emotions, off control, off fake love. Rick blinked. Oh, good. So this isn't just about weddings anymore now, it's a cosmic therapy battle. The Coasarnaxian fighters attempted to intercept. Nullivar swallowed them with a single thought. Across the galaxy, love turned into confusion. People didn't know how to love freely. Fear spread, and that fear made Nullivar stronger. Rick stood before the last flickering heart crystal, the only link between the baby and the tower. We still have the core signal, Ilara said. If we channel the baby's energy through it, we might reach every mind in the galaxy. Show them how to feel on their own, not controlled, not forced. Rick stepped forward. But I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who ran away from feelings until a glowing baby dropped into my lap. Zara walked to him, took his hand, and yet, you stayed. You changed. You made a choice. The baby floated between them. Now, we choose together. The final connection. The heart crystal exploded with light. Rick, Zara, and the baby hovered within it, a triad of raw, emotional energy. Across the stars, people felt their bond. The fear, the doubt, the awkwardness, the laughter, the truth. Love isn't clean. It isn't a ceremony. It's a choice, messy, beautiful, and real. Nullivar screamed, 1,000 voices howling in anger as his power collapsed, not from war, but from freedom. He faded into nothing. 1 week later, the galaxy began to rebuild. On every world, new ways of bonding were born. No more force, no more laws, just connection. Rick sat on a beach made of glowing sand. The baby was asleep on his chest. Zara sat beside him, her head on his shoulder. Nerp was in the water, being worshipped by jellyfish for reasons unclear. So, Rick said, does this mean we're like dating? Or galactic co-parents? Or are we doing that thing where we say we're just friends and then secretly hold hands? Zara smirked. Let's just say we'll decide together, one moment at a time. He smiled. Cool, just, no more surprise bonding rituals, yeah? She laughed. No promises. Post-credit style. Deep in the remnants of the old council chamber, transmission activated. A figure stepped from the shadows, wearing Kelthan's robes. Behind him others. They call themselves the True Bind. They want the code back. The figure turned to a new soul splice crystal. Stolen, glowing, waiting. Let's begin again.